Hi everyone, it's Jillian, your TA here. So today we are going to be going over the lit chart assignment. So one of the goals of the lit chart is to look at articles in a broader sense, identify gaps in the literature or where the research is lacking. So this can include a specific population that wasn't studied or the failure to look at a specific intervention or outcome. So, when it comes to finding a limitation in current studies and then using those limitations and gaps to create your own research, it's easier to think of it in terms of EDP. So, that's exposure, disease, and population. So, we can kind of think of this as like a little formula. Um, so, exposure and outcome or disease and population. So the goal is to pick a research topic and then identify a gap in the literature, and you're going to change one of these three things in the formula. So for example, when my group was doing our lit chart, we wanted to see how apparent stress affects the glycemic control of their diabetic child. So throughout all the literature we were looking at, we found that all the articles only studied moms because traditionally mothers are seen as caregivers, and there was thousands and thousands of articles about moms, single moms, the stress and anxiety they felt. But one of the limitations we found was that there was a lack of the paternal perspective, and there was more specifically no research done on single fathers dealing with their diabetic children. So my group kept the exposure the same, so stress, and we kept the disease the same, type 1 diabetes in children, but we changed the population to be single fathers instead of mothers. So next, we're going to talk a little bit more about the lit chart. So we're going to try and find a diverse collection of research articles. So soon you'll be writing your draft lit review, which is the first part of your research proposal. And for that, you're going to need 8 credible sources. And the lit chart assignment looks for 10 sources. So if you can find 10 really good, useful sources, then that's half the battle of doing the assignment. A good place to look for these articles is PubMed, or I used Google Scholar a lot to find like peer-reviewed journal articles. The Elon Library also has a web page with a list of like databases. You can go on the public health page, and those are really, really helpful. So we're going to do some examples of working through the chart. Okay, so first you're just going to write down the search terms you used. You're going to do a little APA citation and then data source. So where did you find this article? So you could say I found it on PubMed and I used the Google Scholar database. So study objectives. So for this, you're going to want to create like a 1-sentence summary of like the meat of the research article. So this can typically be found in the abstract. That's a good place to kind of get like an overview of the whole article. So let's say you found an article about smoking prevalence in high school students. So an example of a study objective might be something like the purpose of this study was to explore if there is a relationship between smoking rates in high school teens and teens raised in a divorced household. Okay, next we're going to look at the population being studied. So this can typically be found in the methods section of the research article you're looking at. So an example of this might be the population used in the study was high school students ages 14-18 in rural Alabama. Okay, let's just move these a little over so we can see that better. Okay, so next we're going to look at what the study found. So this is typically going to be in like the results and discussion section of the research article. So an example of this might be something like using an anonymous survey, researchers concluded that high school students raised, high school students in rural Alabama that came from divorced households were 20% more likely to smoke than students who came from nuclear households. Okay, the formatting is kind of funky on this right now. Let's see if I can make that look a little cleaner. Okay, fix my spelling errors real quick. Okay, okay, perfect. And then for the notes section, I would recommend listing if the article was a primary, secondary, or a tertiary, so what approach the article used. And then I would also mention if there was any specific methodologies the article used. I remember specifically one of the articles I chose used the PIP survey, which was Pediatric Inventory for Parents. And then they got a lot of great data from it, so I used it in my personal method section of my draft. So just jot down any noteworthy methodologies that you may want to include. It's always a good tool to have in your back pocket if you get to the method section and you're like, oh my goodness, how am I going to actually assess or collect data? Another thing I would include is if the article mentions any further research ideas or if there was any limitations to the study, because that may help you better cultivate a narrower research question. So make sure to jot that down. That can definitely help you define your question and your topic more. So that's it for this video. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. Good luck!